Time to talk about a movie I saw, so therefore I didn't waste my time watching it, since someone's taking their time to hear what I think of the movie, in which case they might waste their time for better or worse to go watch this movie themselves. I know how to use words. Anyways, Rescued by Ruby. That's a movie. I watched it last night, and now it's the next day. I need to do my best to remember what happened in the movie to talk about it. That sounds mean, but it's just one of those movies where it's a solid film, but nothing more, nothing less. You'll just know if you're into this movie from the trailer, and that's it. Only up to you to decide if you want to watch Rescued by Ruby, and maybe because of who stars in this film. I thought that Grant Gustin, well known for CW's Flash series as The Flash, but there's more to this movie behind the scenes than I thought. I mean, I'll obviously go into detail about Gustin's performance later on, so let's talk about the most obvious thing. This movie is based on a true story. I saw the trailer, it looked cute, the main character seemed something I could personally relate to, more on that later, and I'll say this being a true story definitely changed my views on the story afterwards, but I'm still judging this movie as is. The movie was released by Netflix, that's not special anymore, sorry, but the movie is produced by Fizzy Studios, a company which I never heard of before, and they made the X-Files, many R.L. Stine adaptations, and a ton of Hallmark movies, which definitely resonate with this movie, considering this feels like a Hallmark movie, but on Netflix, so I judge it as a Netflix movie, when it probably just be a TV movie I ignore. The movie is also written by Karen Jansen, and directed by Kat Shia, a name I couldn't believe made this movie, considering her filmography, Strip to Kill, The Rage Carry 2, Poison Ivy, the Nancy Drew movie I think I watched a year ago. I barely remember it at all. It started to go from it. But anyways, yeah, it's just bizarre, but with all that said, I should start explaining what the movie is about, though. As I said, based on a true story about a Rhode Island state trooper named Dan O'Neill, played by Grant Gustin, he suffers from being easily unfocused. And I don't remember them outright saying he had ADHD, but as someone who has ADHD himself, which is me, I wanted to see how they, dealt with that. What made me want to see this movie was because of, how did they deal with that? And, other reasons I said before. Anyways, Dan has tried many times to join the K9 search and rescue team. His dream job, but he has failed many times, and his next chance to try out is his last chance. He has to support his wife, elementary school teacher Mellisa, played by Kaylah Zander, their baby son, and another child on his or her way. We never find out if it's a boy or girl. When Dan can't afford to buy a German Shepherd for himself, he goes to a dog shelter where he could adopt the first shelter dog to make the canine unit, her name being Ruby. Ruby is a mischievous dog, hard to control, but is adorable, and also her last chance to find a family, as her caretaker at the shelter, Pat, played by Camille Sullivan, knows what could happen to Ruby if she makes a mess once more. Dan and Ruby learn to get along, making her a part of the family, training her to help him get into the K9 unit, forming a loving friendship, and yeah, that's it. The movie is exactly, and I mean exactly what you think it is. Does it make it bad? More or less. It always depends on the execution. So, with that said, what did I think of Rescued by Ruby? The movie's fine. It's not awful, but nothing great. It's just a solid movie where it is too corny or sappy to be in theaters, but probably better than a movie I see on Lifetime or Hallmark. I could tell the people behind the scenes did really care about the movie they wanted to make. It's just something that, give it a week at least, I'll forget mostly what I saw in it, which I did watch and I did enjoy, but it's nothing memorable or really that interesting. Am I glad I watched it? Sure. Do I regret watching it? No. Did I need to see this movie? No. I never heard the story or people prior to watching it, so and as I said, learning the true story definitely made me rethink how I judge this movie. The first two acts of the movie are what you expect. Both Dan and Ruby are struggling for different yet similar reasons. Of course, being told later on by people close to them they are very similar shows them certain scenes where Ruby misbehaves and later on improving upon her mistakes. I mean, it's not awful, but nothing special. There's one scene where Ruby gets kicked out of a bean school on day one, and I'm thinking to myself, I saw this in Marley and Me, and I remember it being way more funny. The movie isn't a comedy, it's a melodrama, and that's fine. The movie is literally so happy-go-lucky in the first two acts, which I didn't mind. The characters are way better than something I see on Hallmark, where they're so bland it hurts. Dan and Mellisa have great chemistry. I believe the actors in real life could be a real couple. The movie is beautiful to look at, so it wasn't a chore to get my eyes on screen. And yes, the dog is adorable and very well trained, and sure, it can feel corny sappy too, but I don't care. It depends on the execution. Speaking of which, My problems with the movie is still what you expect it to be, and honestly, I thought it would be over by the second act, but the third act kind of gives me the whole movie I didn't want it to be. It takes itself way too seriously, and it drags on despite the movie's short running time, because I know what's gonna happen, and it's still portrayed as super corny and savvy. Like, without spoiling anything that happens, a character who's sad is in the rain, but then when he becomes happy again, the rain immediately disappears and it's sunshine. The third act is driven by a character mistake I could kind of believe and could work if, if I didn't literally figure out the mistake this character made as someone who's, not a cop. I was surprised. Oh, I was able to figure out what the cop couldn't in this movie. I think I would figure out exactly where the body was hidden thanks to Ruby. That sounds really sick out of context. And the climax of the movie, I thought it was way too corny and sappy how supposedly it all came together full circle. It couldn't be real. But the climax of the film really happened with these people, so I'll be lenient. Yeah, I'm still judging the movie as is. Grant Gustin, for the most part of the movie, does a solid performance. Nothing spectacular, but I give a thumbs up. But by the end of the movie, his charisma does go down a little, which is during the dramatic scene. So it really was taken away from my own enthusiasm from watching the film. The actors are fine. The characters are a bit much like I have no idea how much of these people were portrayed accurately. What did get me interested was the main character struggle with ADHD. It's also fine. I can relate to something he's done. Gustin plays the role fine because the movie is fine. It's a solid film, and that's it. Did I like the movie? I don't know. I enjoyed it for the most part, but it drags by the end. It feels corny and sappy throughout, which I was fine with, but still, it doesn't help with how generic the movie feels throughout also. Do I recommend the movie? Sort of. I say I just watched the trailer. You'll know if this is for you. Simple as that. For me, the movie was alright, but I can't say I really feel positive about it. Since I enjoyed it, but I couldn't really care about the characters or story. And I wouldn't just say it's a popcorn flick. It's the kind of movie you watch and kind of feel good about yourself. Yet there are hundreds of thousands of other films that do that better. The movie is nothing special. It's just a movie to me I wasted my time watching for better or worse. And nothing more. I give Rescued by Ruby a 5 out of 10.